Baruchim habaim b'shem Adonai. Blessed is this time and sacred is this place for the reason we gather to engage in the sacred task of memory, of honoring loved ones who have gone. I start every memorial or funeral with that word because I deeply believe that as hard and difficult as what we do, we show up and it's a sacred task. But today's different. We sat down a few days ago to begin the process of remembering and celebrating and mourning Bill. And in that time, the calculus of our grief mourning has changed. When Paulina took ill and died, on that day we were supposed to begin that process for Bill. And so before we begin in this task that we're prepped to do, that we all do all the time, we do it today in this way that is just surreal and strange and seemingly unfair and unimaginable. Why? Why did it happen like this? Why are we here doing this in this way for these two treasured and beloved souls? Perhaps the key is in not how we answer the why, but how we respond. We've been trying to answer this question since we human beings have thought of ourselves as human beings. Every great wisdom tradition tries to make sense of the calamity of life, of the consequence of that calamity and the timing of it. In our tradition, perhaps it's the book of Job who wrestles with that most profoundly and dramatically, as Job has an inordinate amount of calamities happen to him. Job has them all happen in a just stupefying timeliness as well. And he rails at the divine and says, why is this happening? And demands an answer. He wants to know, he wants to figure it out. Most of the book is, a lot of the book is actually God granting Job an audience. God asked Job a series of poetic responses to his prosaic question. Where were you when I laid the foundations of the earth? Where is the way that light dwells? Who has the wisdom to count the clouds? The response to Job is, the why is beyond you. At least in the prosaic sense in your mind. You can't know the why. And admittedly, the response from Job is a little harsh. It's a little judgmental. It's almost as if the divine is saying, Job, well, you can't understand, so just go do your thing. It's not so compassionate. It's not so gracious. Maybe it's true, but maybe where God is pushing Job is to not seek the answer up here, but to respond here. The things we don't know with our mind, our head, our brain will level us, will destroy us, will freeze us in our spot. But what we can know with our heart will support us and sustain us. Perhaps what the divine said so, not so gently, but truthfully to Job is, in these moments, I know you human beings, I built you to think, to question, to organize, to figure out. And that's a part that we honor, but sometimes it's out of balance. There are times, there are moments we must lead with the heart. I think Ecclesiastes responds to this question too, maybe in a more gentler, understanding way. After his famous litany of there are times or moments for everything, Rami Shapiro translates the end of that this way. Moments and the passing of moments, this is life. There is a suffering natural to this flow, and there is no escaping sorrow or joy. Do not add to the first by clinging to the second, for in doing so, you deny the flow of life itself. Live in the moment, tend to the doing, accept whatever comes into your hand, and perhaps this alone may be the path to peace. And so we gather now with our heads just exploding with the why and wanting an answer to understand. Perhaps the peace for now, the way to move forward, is to let our hearts lead, to follow the path of love. For love is that foundational, powerful force in our lives and the cosmos that protects us from nothing, but sustains us in all things. Love protects us from nothing, but it sustains us in all things. And so today, we lead with our hearts. We follow the path of love. May that guide us in the sacred task we endeavor to do together today. And from the poet on love. It's called Epitaph by Merritt Malloy. When I die, give what's left of me away to children and old men that wait to die. If you need to cry, cry for your brother walking the street beside you. When you need me, put your arms around anyone and give them what you need to give to me. I want to leave you something better than words or sounds. Look for me in the people I've known or loved. If you cannot give me away, at least let me live on in your eyes and not on your mind. You can love me most by letting hands touch hands, by letting bodies touch bodies, by letting go of children that need to be free. Love doesn't die. People do. So when all that's left of me is love, give me away. And those words of wisdom from Ecclesiastes Kohelet. V'kol zaman ve'et t'chol chafetz tachat hashamayim. To everything there is a season, a time for every purpose under heaven. Life is fleeting, the passing of moments upon moments. Embrace them as they come, do not cling to them as they go. And this alone, may there be peace. Moments of birth, moments of death, moments of planting, moments of uprooting, moments of killing, moments of healing, moments of knocking down, moments of building up, moments of mourning, moments of dancing, moments of casting stones and moments of gathering stones, moments of embracing and moments of departing, moments of seeking, moments of forsaking, moments of keeping, moments of discarding, moments of tearing and moments of mending, moments of love and moments of hate, moments of war, moments of peace, moments of silence, moments of speech. And so we welcome and invite these moments of speech, not just of the words of those who have struggled with these questions and share their wisdom with us, but moments of speaking the stories, the truths, the essence of Bill and Paulina. So I'd like to create some time and space for anyone who may have one of those moments with one of them or both of them. So come up and share briefly that moment. Not expecting, or nor are we asking anyone to give a speech. But just a short reflection. It could be the most simple and mundane of moments, but it comes to you now. Trust that. And trust that it will bring meaning to all who are remembering and celebrate them. And as we do this in this sacred but odd moment, we take time, we are celebrating both of them. So whether it is a Bill moment or a Paulina moment, or a Bill and Paulina moment, it doesn't matter. I invite you to come and stand at the podium and share what comes to mind or heart of either of them or both of them. Thank you. It's especially some support to, well, to everybody, but Karen, Marcy, and Diana, the three of you in particular. I'm Ron Litvak, for those who don't know. My father, Larry Litvak, was Uncle Bill's big brother. And they had been law practice partners early in Uncle Bill's career and my dad's career. And then no one really knows the reason why they had a rift between them. Even they probably could not tell you, but they did for a very, very long time. And in recent years, there was a thaw and sort of a rapprochement, a reconciliation. Well, and my dad died in October, and my mom died in December. Just back before Dad died in October, your dad got a hold of me and said he'd like to come over and visit with Dad. They'd seen each other at some family occasions and all, and they had talked nicely with one another in the recent occasions. But they really hadn't had an occasion to do this, just to meet together. And we made arrangements. It was early in October. Uncle Bill and Aunt Paulina came over to Mom and Dad's house and sat, because Dad's voice with Parkinson's was so faint and muddled. I needed to be there, especially with two men whose hearing were between them not, as good as anyone. I kneeled between them as they talked very nicely, sweetly to each other, and really with sort of just a lot of love in their hearts and a lot of compassion for one another, for the first time that I had seen that. And I have no doubt that it took Aunt Paulina some probably 25 years of casual suggestions and maybe a little bit more to get Uncle Bill to the place where that could happen, and where these two men who were brothers could really be brothers once again. And that's the way they ended things. Dad died about 2 weeks later. So I was so grateful for your father having done that. I was so grateful to Aunt Paulina for, no doubt, in the background being the voice that encouraged and persuaded that to happen. And I just wanted to share that moment with you because it was a really sweet moment that happened, and no one at that point in time could have expected that everyone in that room now has gone. Well, except me. Hopefully I'll stay that way. Thank you. Thank you.
For those of you that don't know me, I'm Karen, Bill's oldest daughter. Paulina's oldest stepdaughter. Wow. I'm going to say something briefly about both of them. First, my dad, who I've spent obviously the most time with, he had a really good heart. And we saw the good heart a lot while growing up. Probably one of my favorite memories of him was him singing over us and singing to us. He had a beautiful voice, and he took a lot of joy when he was putting us to bed at night, just singing different songs. And I remember that very clearly. He definitely showed his good heart to me. In the final weeks, I had the privilege of being with him and taking care of him. And he was so unselfish. Kept asking me why I was there without my husband. Why did I take time away from James to take care of him? Just had a hard time believing that he was unimportant to us, because this was an arrangement we all had made. And he kept asking me, what can I do? I feel like I'm not doing enough. What can I do to help? How could I help? And he helped so many people during his whole life, as a lawyer, as a dad, as an uncle, as a husband. He helped many, and I don't think he realized it because he was very humble, and he never boasted about anything he did. And these are my very good thoughts. And Paulina, wow, I mean, they adored each other. My dad adored her. She adored him. I learned a lot. I was kind of an older bride. I didn't get married till I was 41. I learned a lot from watching Paulina. Probably the most important thing I learned is that she never called him by his name. She always called him Sweetie. It was always Sweetie, never Bill, always Sweetie. And it just spoke with him and to him with so much adoration, cared for him sacrificially. I know it was hard for her to leave him even in the last couple of weeks, but she really needed to spend time with her family, and that was important. Dad understood that. And I remember the conversations they had while she was in Europe. Dad would say, I miss you terribly. I miss you something awful. I'm just not the same without you. And it was just very touching for me to hear those conversations because I just realized the great love the two of them had. And she was a classy chick. She was definitely sophisticated. She taught us a lot about fashion, about culture, took the granddaughters to plays, operas, symphonies, introduced them to some things that they probably would not have been able to see. And she was amazing in that way. Both of them were amazing, and it was just amazing to see the love between them and be part of their lives.
Hello, I'm Bill's oldest granddaughter, Allison. He and Paulina used to take care of us every week. Grandpa used to take us out for ice cream every Wednesday. And then we hang out at our house. And Paulina would teach me to knit, and she also taught us to bead. So they will be very missed.
Hello, I'm Juan Eduardo Lopez. I'm Paulina's nephew, older nephew. I came from Chile. I was with her in Europe last week. And well, what can I say? Bill and Paulina, generous people, always support me. I was talking the daughters how he supported me in my studies, how he invited me to the United States. He carried me to the courts. He encouraged me to be a lawyer. He went to Chile when I got my bar examination. And Paulina, she was a mother to me, always generous. She was sweet. She was a sophisticated woman, but a strong woman. When bad times came, and they were very bad, She was always supporting my family. Well, what can I say? I will hope you see you in another life.
So I'm Brian Wynn. I am married to Diana. So a few thoughts. First of all, thank you to Paulina for inviting me into the family. It's been a tremendous experience. Mostly great times, a few rough times, but as expected. A few memories. I'm gonna just one that I remember in particular, and then I'll riff on what Rabbi Mo said, not nearly as eloquently, but I remember on the first trip to Lake Powell, this big boat, and I'm from the middle of Kansas, so I've never been on a boat this big before. And he said, Brian, get up here. It's about 10 o'clock in the morning. And went up to the top. There's two places I remember you could drive the boat down to at the bottom at the top. And he said, I'm gonna teach you how to drive this boat. I said, God, there's 20 people on this boat. This is my first year on this boat. What do we do? So anyway, he showed me what to do, and then it took him like a minute to tell me. And then so I'm gonna leave you. And then he said, wait, I'll be right back. And I need to give you two things. So he went downstairs and he grabbed a captain's hat and a beer and said, you're fine. So anyway, my other thought was more what Rabbi Mo was saying. When I think about death, I think death is hard because you lose your shared experiences with another. So you lose that precious time that you can't explain to anybody else. That's so hard to replace. But I think we fill that by events like this. And by the way, the Jewish faith does funerals really well. Jamie, you taught me that a while ago, actually. So the shared experience that we create together helps us fill the hole that we all feel today.
Poetry from Rabbi Alvin Fine. Life is a journey. Birth is a beginning and death a destination. And life is a journey from childhood to maturity, youth to age, from innocence to awareness, and ignorance to knowing, from foolishness to discretion, and then perhaps to wisdom, from weakness to strength or strength to weakness, and often back again, from health to sickness, and we pray back to health again, from offense to forgiveness, from loneliness to love, from joy to gratitude, from pain to compassion, and grief to understanding, from fear to faith, from defeat to defeat to defeat until looking backward or ahead, we see that victory lies not at some high place along the way, but having made the journey stage by stage, a sacred pilgrimage. Birth is a beginning, death a destination. But life is a journey, a sacred pilgrimage to life everlasting. So what seems like a long time ago, but it was only a few days ago, after we sat down and visited about Bill, and I sat down to reflect and think and feel about all that you share with me and how I might share about him. For some reason, I don't think too deeply about these things. I just trusted. I thought about one of the creation stories you find in our tradition. Because so much of what you tell me aligned with that. And then as I had to sit down once again, after listening, and thinking and feeling, I felt too a creation story might help me maybe capture just a hint of the essence of not just Bill, but Paulina. It may surprise you just to realize there's more than one creation story. Oh, there are in our tradition. In fact, there's two in the first two chapters of the book of Genesis. We all amalgamate them into one, but there's that first one that's day 1, day 2, and all through day 7. And then there's a second one where the order's different, the God language is different, and we can have a great text study some other time, but not today. Just trust me. It's that first story that I thought about Paulina. The first story, as I mentioned, God is there, the character of God says in day 1, let there be light, let there be darkness. And every day it's just let there be, and it's there, and it's good, until we culminate on day 6 where human beings are created, and then there's rest on day 7. As I gave some notice to what your both stories and memories of Paulina inspired in me and my own experience with her, I thought about that. That story is orderly. Things are in its place, and there's a security, there's a beauty in that. And Paulina had that sense, that gift. Whether it was how she adorned herself or her life around her, there was that order and beauty. And it wasn't a rigidity, it was a sense of where things belong. She had that about people too. She would, we heard about, I'll mention in a moment, Bill's generosity, but her sense of orderliness helped him to be a better giver and to mitigate the array of requests for giving that he received. She, in that sense of beauty, she had that sense of how to, well, maybe it was her artistry as well, whether it was in the house or how she did everything she did. But then there's the peculiarity in the story. Because actually there's 2 times, if you read the text, on day 1 and day 4, where it seems that light is created. On day 4, it's the sun and moon, the stars and all those things. And day 1, it's just light. And our sages say, oh, those are very different lights. The lights that we see with our eyes, the sun and moon and stars, that's the light of day 4. And to me, that's the light of awareness, of seeing. And I think of Paulina's intellect, her great capacity for knowledge. And even though her formal education stopped after high school, she was a student of the world. She was a Renaissance person in the things she chose to learn and know about. And that light and that breadth of knowledge and information, and even curiosity, well, it inspired her creativity. And perhaps we saw that in how she cooked and the beauty she brought to that. We saw that in how she had gifts of her hands that she could make jewelry or what'd you gotta tell me that she did? She knit, that's what I'm not having a blank on that. I heard that in the way that she just didn't write a letter to you at camp. She had to do a presentation with images and humor. That awareness, that intellect, that light, something she saw, cultivated, and shared with everyone. But then there's that last light, that second light. Light of day 1, let there be light. And our sages just, oh, this is the deeper light. This is the primordial light where we see more than what our eyes can see. We intuit, we feel, we share, we connect. And I'm pretty sure that came across to every creature who encountered her. Maybe sometimes we describe it as a glint in the eye. You saw it with her humor, her insight, ability, courage, not caring to say anything she was thinking. and the way she did it in a playful, loving way, disarming, that we appreciated that. Perhaps you saw that too in the way it was not just with human beings, but with animals. She made that connection, and people who knew her all felt that, I've got something special with that was that light. And perhaps too, it was her ability or the way she looked at the world. I can step back and see it in its fullness and complexity, appreciate the irony of life. Not with anger or doubt, but just with curiosity and humor and connecting. And I know this piece, this light of her, you all felt who were so close to her. Juan Eduardo, Marcelo, you came all this way to be with us and celebrate her and take that physical part of her back to her homeland. I can only imagine the way that this light showed up and how you knew her. And though you shared about how, just about who she was and who she loved, changed your life. That is a testament to this unique essence that she was. Ella and Lucy and Allison and Emily, you felt this in her and the way she wanted to, those letters at camp, what she taught you, Spanish, knitting, feeding you, being curious about you. This is the way she shone that light on you and your lives. And Karen and Marcy and Diana, as I think about, well, you shared a glimpse of me of how her light so deeply impacted your lives. I keep going back to the story she told when I first met about when she was converting and meeting with Rabbi Goldberger. All us rabbis aspire to be as wise as Rabbi Goldberger seemed to be. And he said, basically, you're going to this family, don't be these girls' mother. Don't try to do that, just be their friend. And we know she embodied that because I've sat with you and I feel the love, the genuine love you feel for her. And that's extraordinary and beautiful too, because as we know, it doesn't always play out that way. But even more extraordinarily is that she was able to sit in that conversation and listen and take it in. And I feel that's just such a deep, profound way that she understood how to be in the world and people, and was part of that fundamental light that made her her, and then brightened and warmed all the rest of our lives. And I hope and pray the way that she shone on you, all of you this way, even though there's now a darkness or shadow, because it doesn't shine so bright, but the way it enlightened you or warmed you are still part of your lives. Did you remember and try to figure out how to live without that light? Bill. When I sat and listened to the stories and how you talked, I walked away, there was a mantra in my mind. Big hands, big heart, big spirit. Big hands, big heart, big spirit. Body, heart, spirit. As I walked away, as I said, what came to me didn't make sense of another story. It's actually not in our original Torah text. It's a mystic story of creation. Rabbi Isaac Luria told the story. It's a kind of wild story, so I'm trying to explain it and tell you why Bill came to mind and heart for me. The story is that when the universe started, that the divine being or divinity first crafted these vessels, these physical pieces that I imagine they were strong and beautiful and elegant and distinguished. And they had to be all those things because they contain what's called the spherotes. All the aspects of divinity, the heart. They were, and our tradition names them. They were compassion, they were fairness, they were love, they were truth. And all of them were contained in 10 beautiful vessels, all those powerful energies and dynamics. But what happened in the story of creation, even though we had these beautiful vessels and those elements of divinity, the spirit of what that was as majestic and incredible it was could not be contained. And so those vessels fractured and split. And then that created the reality in which we live. And we spend our time trying to make tikkun, healing, by gathering the shards of that beauty, of physical and emotional, and trying to craft it. And so there it was, Bill. The physical, the emotional, the spirit. The physical, the big hands, but his stature, his beauty, his good looks. I heard stories both from Paulina when she first brought him wine and water. You didn't share this part that she told with us. When she came home with him for the first time, she told us all of her girlfriends thought, That's not, I'm not quoting her on that, I'm interpreting. When he came as a lawyer to help guide through a mock court, and even as a teenager, Diana could see her teachers, fawning and recognizing his good looks, his beauty. I think he felt that, and he walked in the room, and I can imagine just and shaking those big hands, feeling that strength, that stature. But the physicality came more from that. It was how he engaged the world. His voice, the way he sung, was also as beautiful as how he looked to people. And so he had this gorgeous, impressive vessel. But then there was the heart, what was contained in it was all these aspects. It was that generosity, that compassion. Even Karen just mentioned in the family you experienced, but out in the world, the charities that Paulina organized for him to give to, the clients who he gave his time to because they could not afford him but needed him. His sense of security or safety that was so important. He was protective of those who needed protection and those he loved. His sense of honesty and fairness that played out in his truth-telling and inability or discomfort, even with white lies, although we learned a little bit of another one we didn't know about the other day, but I still think the broad is definitely true. And there were all those pieces of that heart that were part of him and that were part of how he lived. But then there was that big spirit. Because as wonderful as those two other, the emotional and the physical were, that spirit was big and huge, and it was not to be contained all the time. And that brought him a little heartbreak or discomfort, and maybe authentically always following the path that that spirit would guide him on. But there were moments, there were times that it shone and you knew it was authentically him. Maybe it was back in the days when he was a kid and went to the family junkyard or refuge spot, just could play with all the pieces and figure out how they fit together. Maybe it was on the roller coaster at Disney World or Elitch, and just in that thrill of the up and down. Maybe it was when he sang or made the space to listen to music the music he had so meticulously organized and allowed it to reach deep into his soul and move and inspire him. Maybe it was with that connection he had with animals and how they so loved him and knew him. Or maybe most those moments on Lake Powell, on the boat, or water skiing so beautifully and gracefully, maybe the perfect synergy of body, emotion, and spirit. I'm also quite sure it was with all of you that this spirit was most realized and fulfilled. Ella, Lucy, and Emily, and Allison, with Bill, with your grandfather. There was that physicality, the way he would lift you up and play the kind of human jungle gym. The sharing of time, whether it's ice cream. I love a man who loves ice cream. I can really respect that. Or just the simple, deep attention to what you were doing. From watching you play a sport, just sitting with you in a room and just making sure you were okay. And everything in between. Delivering dog biscuits, all those things. That's the way you knew him. And also, well, you knew him too. Brian mentioned a bit in the way he welcomed all of you, the fathers of some of these soon-to-be grandchildren and husbands of the daughters he loves so much. They just welcome you with pure openness and acceptance. Probably with one of those handshakes that I imagine may have been intimidating at first. Then you come to understand the context, the soul in which it fit. And Karen and Marcy, Diana, you knew that in the way that, well, you always came first in his eyes. And he knew that in the way how he was so adored in your eyes. And even at his marriage, as your household split, your place in his mind and heart never wavered. And you figured out how to make relationship, how to let love blossom. And today we sit here as kind of in the story. We see his vessel, it's shattered. Because that spirit which struggled and showed and shined out in different ways finally is uncontained, is liberated, and maybe even realized. And so we celebrate that aspect of him not being here, but grab hold of and embrace all those other pieces that were such deep parts of your lives and the world. And what we say about the two of them. You know, when I first came to visit and Paulina shared her memories and stories, as often happens in those moments, and she just met me and it was all the good stuff. It was all great and awesome. And then we visited more, you know, as many of us who've been married a while, we know it's awesome and there's other moments too. And maybe we attribute that to that human nature of how we remember and how we tell a story. I also like to think, though, that that was part of her sharing the authentic nature of their two lives, how their two souls, their two stories amalgamated and integrated and become one. As I mentioned, our tradition has more than one creation stories. They all capture a sliver of truth. And together they point us towards, well, there's the foundation of everything, that's love. I'd like to think the differentness of their stories, while different and don't always align and maybe cause for stress or even anxiety, we're still part of coming together, that we're centered around and uplifted by the power of love. We've come here to revel in, to be embraced by the beauty of these two souls and the stories their lives told us and impacted us. We start this today, but it doesn't stop today. It'll continue as you continue to remember and share stories and see how their stories have inspired your own. So let us take a few moments on our own to remember, to celebrate, to honor the lives of Bill and Paulina Litvak. And so now we look to close our time here together with the prayer we call El Male, with the prayer with a simple acknowledgement request. Acknowledgement that this part of us that is physical, has limits, that we acknowledge that about Bill and Paulina's life and physicality. But that part that is beyond, that's more. That spirit, that soul that we can barely begin to contain and name. But that for each of them, that spirit, that soul knows peace. So would you all please rise as I lead us through this prayer. El Male Rachamim Shochein Bamromim. Hamtzei Minchona Nechona Taka Kanpei Ashchina. Im Kedoshim Utohorim Kazal HaRikia Maserim. Et Nishmat Sarah Mira. Et Nishmat Avigdor Ben Yitzchak. Shehachim La'olamam. Ba'al HaRachamim Yastirehu Beseter Kanafav La'olamim. Torah B'Torah Hachim Et Nishmatam. Anahu Nachalatam. Ba'enuach Hamishkabam B'Shalom. O great wellspring of compassion and life, eternal spirit of the universe, grant perfect rest under the sheltering wings of your presence to Bill and Paulina. Author of mercy, may they find refuge forever in the shadow of your wings. May their soul be bound up in the bond of eternal life. May the Eternal One be their inheritance, and may they rest in peace. And we all say, Amen. Please be seated.
Hello, everyone. This does conclude this portion of our service here at the mortuary. In just a moment, I'm going to ask anybody who would like to volunteer to be a pallbearer for Bill to please come forward, and we will escort the casket out to the coach. We do not have an escorted procession on our way to Rose Hill, so please make sure to obey speed limits, traffic laws, everything like that. And please make your way to your cars as quickly as possible. We want to make sure that the family has plenty of time to get to their cars if they need to use the restroom and things like that. So if I can have anyone who'd like to come up and be a pallbearer with me, you can do so right now. Everyone else can go ahead and make their way out to the cars. Thank you very much.